Morning and welcome to our virtual tour of the Japanese Friendship Garden. I'm so glad that you can be with us today for this tour. We will be enjoying a 30-minute series of mini videos which have been made for us specifically to tour the Japanese Friendship Garden. And at 12:30, our two docents from the Japanese Friendship Garden will be joining us for a live Q&A. So as you watch your video, please note whatever questions you have, and we will take those questions when we have our docents with us. I want to do a shout out, a thank you to Retirement Association board member Shirley Higgins, who worked very hard at putting this event together for our members. So thank you very, very much, Shirley. And let's go ahead and begin rolling the 30-minute video. Enjoy.
The Japanese Friendship Garden in Balboa Park is a living illustration of two cultures that create a unique experience in Japanese culture. JFG reflects the three characteristics of mountainous, floral, and water features that are found in the Sankei-en Garden located in San Diego's sister city of Yokohama. Upon entering, JFG's upper garden greets you with an indoor exhibit hall, a dry stone garden, a wisteria arbor paired with a koi pond that is cared for by the San Diego Koi Club, a dry stone garden, and a bonsai collection carefully curated by the San Diego Bonsai Club. As we continue our tour to the lower garden, the mountainous features take center stage with azaleas, hydrangeas, and a cherry blossom tree grove. The lower garden is highlighted by the recent additions of the multi-purpose Inamori Pavilion and a cast bronze Kannon Bosatsu statue originally made in 1735. Various cultural programs, events, exhibits, and collaborations are held throughout JFG with the goal of developing a traditional Japanese garden into a cultural center to educate, engage, and inspire people of various backgrounds. All of us at the Japanese Friendship Garden look forward to your next visit and taking a walk with us as we grow.
Good morning. I'm Audrey, and this is my husband Bob, and we're both docents here at the Japanese Friendship Garden in Balboa Park. And this morning, we're hoping to just walk with you through the garden and point out some hopefully interesting facts, and maybe just liven up your tour as we go along. And we're going to start inside the gate because we're not quite open yet, and we'll start with a little bit of history about the park to get you going. We have a black pine, which is a good example of some of the principles employed in a Japanese garden, because one of them is called miniaturization, and to keep things in proportion, the landscapers spend a lot of time trimming and maintaining the shape to make it fit into the amount of space that we have here. And if they didn't do that, there's a pine tree outside the garden, and if you can see, left untrimmed, it could get that big, and that would just overwhelm the garden itself and leave you feeling like things aren't in proportion. So you can see that they've trimmed it kind of in an asymmetrical shape, and Bob's a little bit more knowledgeable about that, so I'll let him jump in here.
As Audrey just said, one of the design principles is asymmetry. The idea that nature is asymmetric, is not perfectly geometric, like you might see more in Western gardens, tend to use more geometric shapes. This, again, asymmetric, and typically arrangements are in triangular shapes, scaling triangles, never right triangles or triangles in perfect proportion. Again, a design principle thought to be more in harmony with nature.
What you see right here is an accessory that's become increasingly popular in even home gardens, and it's called in Japanese a shishi odoshi, and roughly translated, that's a deer chaser. So in Japan, back in the days when the farmers were dealing with deer coming and ravaging their crop, they would devise something like this, and it would fill with water periodically, and then as it filled up, it would drop, and then it would fall back on a rock, making a fairly loud and alarming sound, and that would chase the deer away. So kind of in an organic way, you know, you've got a scarecrow that's both aesthetically pleasing and just kind of fun to have around.
Something that we always try to point out is that the stones, as you see here, are really the foundation of a Japanese garden. They're the first things placed in the garden. They're placed to look natural, not simply thrown on top of the ground, so to speak. The selection of them, again, is extremely important, and they're sort of people who specialize in picking out the stones and establishing the placement for them. One of the best times to see a Japanese garden is after a rain, and the rain refreshes the air, it cleanses things, and it will show you things that maybe you don't see if you're just walking around here on a normal day.
I want to introduce to you 3 trees that are of very significant importance in the Japanese culture, so much so that you'll find this threesome represented in artwork, maybe even on a sake bottle label, and combined it's called shochikubai. And the 3 trees are right here, the plum tree, and back there is the pine tree, and then over here are the bamboo. And the significance of these trees is what they represent. And in the case of the bamboos, they grow straight up and flexible, so that kind of teaches us that sometimes in life, you know, you have to sway and stay flexible to survive. And then right here is the plum tree, and most of you are familiar with the Japanese culture in relationship to like the cherry blossom tree, but actually after a harsh winter, the first tree that you're going to see blooming is the plum tree. So that historically has given people the sign that, you know, you've survived yet another winter and spring is just around the corner. And then over here, you'll see the really handsome black pine tree, and that's a tree that just shows grace and strength. And if you ever fly over Japan, you will see that really the whole country is covered in pine. And it's just a really noble tree. So that kind of encourages us to behave in a likewise fashion. And it looks weathered. It looks like it's survived the seasons. It doesn't drop its leaves. It's evergreen. So the 3 trees combined, you will often see them even in artwork like this. And now that you know about it, you can pick up that that's the representation of the pine, and then that's the representation of the plum flower, and then these leaves right here represent the bamboo. So put together, it's shochikubai, and now that you're onto it, you'll see it all around. Quite often, before you enter a place of kind of sacred, like a temple or a shrine, and in that sense a tea house is also kind of a special place, you would prepare yourself physically and spiritually before you enter. So what you see here is an arrangement called a tsukubai, and it allows you to purify yourself with the water placed here. And you have a little scoop, and you would take this and then rinse off your left hand, and then you would rinse off your right hand. So that symbolically says I've purified my body. And then you can take this water into your hand, and then you've purified your inside too. And then you can just let the water run down the handle and then place it down there for the next person to use. And if you were ever in Japan and you get overwhelmed in front of the shrines or the temples, you don't have to worry, because there's big signs, big posters, you know, for foreigners that tell you exactly step by step, do this, 1, 2, 3, and then you're good to go. Currently, we have an exhibit of these cat sculptures called maneki neko, and you often see them like in restaurants because they're kind of a beckoning and welcoming cat symbol, and often placed there for good luck and welcoming customers in. So come on in. And here we have just a fantastic exhibit of all sorts of maneki neko made of different materials, but always with just the one hand up, welcoming you in.
What you're seeing now is called the kare sansui, the dry stone garden. A factor that appeals to me a little bit is that you don't need plants to have a Japanese garden. They're optional. The stones are, as we said earlier, really the most important thing. Here you see a dry garden, a Zen garden that you might see in many of the temples in Japan. There are an odd number of stones. As we said earlier, odd numbers are favored. Precisely, there are 7. They represent islands in the Japan Inland Sea in this depiction. The gravel, as it's raked, is the water feature to show really gentle waves or ripples. To the far right is a large stone standing upright. It is the master rock. All the other stones, if you will, look to it. And it has little ledges. Those ledges are a place for good spirits to rest when they need to take a break. There's also here a design principle of borrowed scenery. You look out here, you're seeing out into Balboa Park, way beyond the boundaries of our garden, but that borrowed scenery helps to give an enlarged feeling, to give you a feeling of more openness and more space. Now here we are now at, I think is my really favorite spot in the garden. This is our koi pond, which is a big attraction for visitors and particularly for kids. A little bit about the koi. They are carp. Their natural coloration is kind of a rusty brown, not the colorful fish that you see here. This came about, carp or koi were brought to Japan from China and just placed in rice paddies and ponds by farmers. There was no interest in them as a food fish as there had been in China. But over time, the farmers began to notice little flecks of color appearing on the fish. They were sort of intrigued by that, really began breeding or crossbreeding, and after, I don't know, maybe 200 or 300 years now or more, you have the various colorations and the patterns that you see here. These particular koi, maintained by the San Diego Koi Club, typically live to be somewhere from 40 to 50 years old. The record that's as far as I know anyway, in Japan is a koi that lived to be 226 years old, which has been documented. The koi we have here they're all female in the pond for reasons to not allow crossbreeding that might kind of disturb the lines. The pond itself, talk about a little bit, is in the shape of a turtle, with the head being at the waterfall and the feet being spread out and the tail back here where we're standing. Within the pond is a little island, which is also in the shape of a turtle, like a baby turtle on the back of its mom, with a pine, again, resting on the back of the baby turtle. All those things are very symbolic. Koi are long-lived. Turtles are very long-lived, very sturdy. The koi here, too, require very specific environment. Kind of behind us there's a deck behind us which covers over what's essentially a huge filtration system for the 8,000 roughly gallons of water in the pond. If the chemicals that are used by the city to sanitize, if you will, our drinking water are not removed, the koi would not survive here. If you see the koi who's now seems to be uncooperative and swimming away from us with the orange circle on the top of her head, she's called a tancho and is very kind of revered in Japan among the koi because it resembles the Japanese flag. A couple more things. Should you want to purchase koi, the show quality, the better quality ones, as you see here, can cost anywhere from a few hundred to a few $1,000s. The top of the line, so to speak, the ones that have won shows, hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially. And the patterns that you see, the types, they all have names, just like breeds of dogs have names, and you can purchase them that way. Don't know how well we'll be able to see it, but there is a picture here that shows the names of the various colors and shapes and markings. Hi everybody, I'm Bob, docent here at the Japanese Friendship Garden. Going to talk just briefly about the history of our garden. We trace that history really to the Panama, California Exposition that was held in 1915. San Diego lost out on the chance to host the International Exposition, lost to San Francisco, but prominent citizens of San Diego at the time decided they wanted to go ahead with an exposition to kind of feature the city, which had only about 40,000 population at the time, but kind of get the word out there that San Diego was here, the first Pacific port north of the newly opened Panama Canal. As part of the exposition, there was a Japanese tea house or tea garden. The structure was actually built in Japan, shipped here, and assembled in the area which is now the Children's Zoo. A Japanese family, the Asakawa family, was brought in to operate the tea house, and they did that for the duration of the exposition, which was 2 years until 1917, and it proved to be so popular that it continued afterwards. They actually operated it until 1942. Early 1942, the Asakawa family was sent to an internment camp. There was no interest after that in operating a tea house. The building was just left essentially vacant and finally fell into disrepair and was torn down in 1955. If we fast forward to 1957, Charles Dale was the mayor of San Diego at the time, and he decided that it might be a good idea to kind of repair relations with Japan. So he became involved in creating a sister city relationship with the city of Yokohama in Japan, which is just south of Tokyo and a port city like San Diego, and at a time also a big Navy town. From that really sister city relationship and discussions came the idea for a Japanese garden here in San Diego and in Balboa Park. It took over 25 years to kind of bring that to fruition. 1984, the city of San Diego granted the society which underlies this garden. The actual garden first opened in late 1990, early 1991. The upper garden was expanded, and the second half, if you will, I believe leading up to this gate, 1999. The gate itself marks the entrance to the lower garden, which was opened in 2015 to coincide with the centennial of the Panama, California Exposition.
Okay, so we are standing here in the lower park near one of the numerous waterfalls, and I just wanted to point out that the sounds that you're hearing are very intentional. There's an actual profession of stone setters, and they place the rocks to create just exactly the sound that you want to be hearing in this location. So here you might hear just kind of a rushing sound of water just cascading down a series of small waterfalls, and that's achieved because the stone setter knows exactly where to put the water, how to divert the water, and the rocks at the bottom that are catching the water to create this sound. When you go to the bottom near the pavilion, you're going to hear a much louder rushing sound, and that again is achieved because the stone setter knows exactly where to place the rocks to get the louder crashing sound. And as the water exits into this larger pool here, we find the lesser valued koi. We talked about the more expensive kind of show quality koi here, but these are kind of our free range koi, so you'll notice that they're able to breed, and we see a number of young koi just doing whatever they do, free to procreate, make little babies. All right, so we are down below at the Inamori Pavilion, and this is where I was mentioning the sound of the waterfall gets quite a bit louder, and you can see now that you're kind of aware that the placement of the rock is what enables the sound to become louder, because you've got the bigger rocks, the water flowing in a wider space. And then down below here are the adorable fish, our free-range koi that have been allowed to just have families and do a more natural breeding here, and I'm going to feed them. And they have kind of a special dietary requirement. So this is kind of like a special koi mix, I guess you would call it.
We're now standing on the deck, or the angawa in Japanese, of the Inamori Pavilion that was mentioned earlier. This pavilion was constructed and funded by Dr. Inamori, who founded Kyocera. Kyocera is a Japanese company whose U.S. headquarters is here in San Diego in the Kearny Mesa area. The building itself is in what's called the Sukiya architectural style, which is the predominant style of farm homes, tea houses, and the like in Japan. If there's an analogy here in the U.S., it might be a craftsman style. It's post and beam construction. Interesting fact, I think, is that the posts were Alaskan yellow cedar, which had to be ordered about 3 years in advance of the actual start of construction because of the need to cure and cut the lumber and ship it here and let it adapt to the San Diego climate. The pavilion's predominantly used for special events, weddings, and the like. It's a great venue for that, and just a beautiful building. If you're here at the garden sometime when things get opened back up, highly recommend you stop in and check it out.
This pavilion is located within the Japanese Friendship Garden, which is located within the historic Balboa Park. The entire Japanese garden is 11 acres. The location of the building is controlled by the landscape architect. The building becomes just a backdrop of this garden environment. Actually, landscape architects moved this building several times, and that was a new experience. How do you design a Japanese building in this context? The style of the building is called the Sukiya style. We try not to hide anything. So that's where the honesty comes in, where the wood meets the metal, metal meets the concrete, concrete meets the deck. All that is exposed instead of hiding it. Wabi-sabi is very authentic Japanese sense of beauty. It has to do with sense of time. So this building will change. For example, this is Alaskan yellow cedar. Eventually, it will become gray, and that's a sense of time. And we allow the nature to take its own course without resisting it or controlling it. The function of the pavilion is to create a gathering space. It's a sense of community we are trying to create. That creates the familiarity with Japanese culture within the context of American culture, and that create a friendship between the two.
So what you're seeing right here is a statue of Kannon, and it's K-A-N-N-O-N. And in Japan, you will find various representations of Kannon in temples or standing alone. There's a temple that is dedicated to the Kannon. And people sometimes mistake the Kannon as being like a female Buddha, but it isn't. And as a matter of fact, in this particular statue, you know that she is honoring Buddha because above her head in the little cutout, there is a little statue of Buddha within the crown. And in Japan, I would say probably roughly 60 to 70% of the population would claim to be Buddhist. And then amongst the 60 to 70% that are Buddhist, probably 90% are also going to say that they observe Shinto as another aspect of their religious life. So there isn't really any conflict or not an issue to observe both religions, because they just kind of coexist peacefully side by side in Japanese society. And I just want to point out some of the things that maybe are of interest. here. So you see Kannong, who is kind of an androgynous deity in Japan, not either male or female, but in the Western translation, I think typically she's referred to as like the goddess of mercy. So we give her kind of a feminine, pronoun. And in Buddhism, I think most are taught that Buddha was just a human being, so we don't, probably petition and pray to Buddha per se. But the Kannon is different. The Kannon is considered the one that does listen to your prayers. So if you were in a temple in Japan, you might see a different representation of Kannon with maybe just hundreds of outstretched arms. And that's to show that she needs all those arms to reach out to you with this issue or that trouble or that heartache or this concern. She just like a mother that needs to tend to all the children with all their needs. She has all these outstretched arms. And she's sitting on a lotus because in Buddhism, the lotus has a lot of symbolism, and it grows in kind of a muddy element, yet it rises above that muddy water and then blooms beautifully. So that's kind of the symbolism of human life, that we exist in tumultuous and maybe not so beautiful settings, but that, by striving, you can rise above it and actually actualize, a beautiful life for yourself. So you see the lotus here, you see her holding the lotus, and throughout the park you will probably notice on many of the stone lanterns, the top part is actually a lotus flower too. And then I'm going to have Bob pop in here and talk a little bit about the history of how this beautiful statue came to existence into our park here.
The sculpture dates from approximately 1735. The sculptor Takumi Obata in Japan. Fast forward about 200 years, excuse me, to 1930. An American businessman purchased the sculpture and took it to Mississippi, actually, where he had it installed in a Japanese garden that he built. That garden, again, about 70 miles east of New Orleans. Come 2005, Hurricane Katrina, the garden was basically destroyed and closed permanently. The statue here was heavily damaged, but it was purchased by a philanthropist from the Los Angeles area, taken to LA, and refurbished rather meticulously. Refurbishment, I believe, took about 2 years, and then brought here and installed and dedicated in December of 2018.
Okay, so I hope you all enjoyed it. I found that absolutely fascinating. I had no idea that koi lived that long. And the statues, it was really spectacular. So I'm hoping that our docents are online with us now. Audrey and Bob, are they?
Yes, outreach coordinators are now co-hosts.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, welcome to you, and thank you so much for your good work in putting together these beautiful, beautiful videos. And now I'd like to see if you have any statement to make. Otherwise, we'll open it up for Q&A.
From us?
Yes. Yes, thank you so much. Audrey and Bob, there you are. Well, that was wonderful. Thank you so very much. So
you're welcome.
Do you have anything you'd like to tell us in addition to, your tour, or shall we open it up for questions?
Well, I think the only thing I'd like to add is, gosh, I sure hope all of you are able to come out and enjoy the garden for yourselves, because it's just so much better to be there.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. I've lived in San Diego a good part of my life, and I've never been there, and now I'm wanting to go. So
Yay.
is it open for visits?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's very important to know. And to our participants, please feel free. We don't have that many, so if you want to unmute yourself and just ask a question, Fran Shepard, go ahead.
Yes, I was didn't want to admit that I hadn't actually been there either. We've had tea and some snacks, but I hadn't been through it. Sometimes when we walk the back way, the little walkabout down below, I figure I'd seen enough. But now that we've seen this, I'm anxious to go through. I can't imagine going through without having this history.
Please do. Oh my gosh. Mariah will be there with a sign, right? Welcome, welcome.
And if you do go, you don't get a tour like this, do you? Or do you? Are there docents like you around?
Under ordinary circumstances, there are docents. And I think usually there was twice a day you could join a tour. I think like at 11 and for the top and then at 1 for the bottom. But right now, not so much, right, Mariah?
Yeah, so that's why we've currently started doing the virtual tours, so that we're still able to get the great knowledge from Audrey and Bob and all the docents that we have here at the garden. But unfortunately, due to safety reasons, we can't actually have people here right now. So until obviously things become more safe, we'll continue to do online tours and educate people that way, so that when you do come through the garden, which we are open every day from 10 to 6, last mission at 5, then you can have some knowledge going in since the docent can't be present.
All right, Mariah, so I have a question for you, but thank you so much for making these videos. We've strung them together. Is it all right that we publish this on our YouTube channel?
I'll actually have to check on that first, but I will definitely find out that information and then contact you.
Because if it would be possible, it would be amazing. Our members would be able to go with their phone through the garden and listen to the docents while they're looking at things. And it would be a docent-led tour. It would be perfect.
Yeah, I'll look into more to that. I'm sure it's fine, but let me double check and make sure I get all the approvals, and then I'll definitely contact you.
Thank you so much. Members, are there other questions for our docents or for Mariah?
I do have a comment and a question. I was a member of the Japanese Society and the gardens, so I visited the gardens several occasions. So I wanted to see if you can offer some information about how to become members of, so we can enjoy the garden on a regular basis. I understand also, I just joined this recording, but I also understand that they offer some yoga sessions and working with the trees. Forgot the name of the art now, but can you offer some information on how we can renew our memberships or become members of the Japanese Society?
Yeah, so if anyone has a chance, I can always send a link over. I highly recommend going to our website. John, our marketing coordinator over here, works really hard on keeping it up to date and super easy to use. So she had mentioned you can be a member. There's different types of memberships that you can apply for. You just purchase them depending on what you're looking for. And then we also offer programs. I believe we do have one program free currently, but most of them you do have to pay for them. We offer yoga almost every day, and we have a wellness program. But I definitely recommend checking it out. We're currently doing a master series, which is a little different, but it's just incredible to see these artisans and how they do their work. So that's something else we're offering. But if you have a chance, I definitely recommend going to the website, because you can sign up for memberships there, as well as finding all the programs and how to get signed up for those. You can also buy admission or your memberships at the actual gate too. So if you prefer to just come in person and handle that, you can do it that way also.
What's the website?
It's niwa.org.
Oh, I would never have known that.
Yeah, it's okay. You can also Google Japanese Friendship Garden San Diego and it'll pop right up.
Oh. Okay.
And I want to add something about membership. The one thing that I think maybe a lot of people don't know is if you have a membership to the Japanese Friendship Garden, they have reciprocity at I want to say dozens, maybe up to 100 different gardens nationwide. And
Oh.
right here, you can get into the garden in Encinitas. They used to call it Quail Gardens. I think the name has changed, but you can get in there for free with
San Diego Botanical Gardens now. I just joined there. And I was going to ask about the reciprocal. So since I joined the Botanical Gardens, do you honor their membership on a reciprocal basis or?
Oh,
we do.
Okay. I wouldn't mind joining. How much is single membership there for you?
No, I'm not completely familiar
Well, I can
with
look
that.
it up. I was just curious.
I believe it's $40, but let me check.
Okay.
Yeah, it really isn't that much. And especially if you can go to, a number of gardens with that one membership, it's really
Well,
worth it.
I just joined San Diego Botanical Gardens. It's really nice because it's near the Methodist church I attend in Encinitas. So I've been going over there after our outdoor church sessions.
Yeah.
It's pretty extensive. I don't know how many acres. It's a really, Japanese garden's pretty good size. I took a tour with the Retirement Association last year and, it's pretty extensive. I think they've almost doubled the size of the property. I know at some point, maybe it was in the 80s or 90s that they expanded the Japanese garden. So very nice walk. It can be challenging for people that have to walk up hills because, to get to the bottom, it is a pretty steep drop. So, on our retirement association, no, I'm sorry, it was with Osher. I'm confusing the two organizations I belong to, but some people, we did a guided tour, but some people weren't able to get to the very bottom. Where the koi, I think they have koi ponds on both levels too. So anyway.
Yeah, fortunately the nicer, more expensive koi are at the top too, so.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, do the membership includes admission to the Huntington Library Gardens in Pasadena?
No.
Okay.
I know
those are beautiful gardens too.
That one's a lot more expensive.
The nice little restaurant outside, does that have any, first of all, is it open? I don't even know now. And does it have anything to do with the gardens? I mean, it's very nice and the food's good.
So we work with them, but they're technically not affiliated with us. They are their own separate restaurant from us. But yeah, they are open and the food is really good. And it's very conveniently located too. So whether it's before you go in or you're exiting, it's definitely a good place to stop. And they do have, I don't know if you guys like these, but they do have some snacks too if you don't want like an actual meal, like bean cakes and stuff. And that's always fun.
Yeah.
Mariah,
are there any
the fabulous.
refreshments?
Oops, go ahead.
Any refreshments inside the park?
Yeah, so actually in the lower garden, there is a full gift shop that does have snacks, lots of different drink options, and then of course, gift items, trinkets, things like that. There is a sitting area down there also. So a lot of people do kind of sit and hang out down there once they've made the feat of getting down to the lower garden. They'll usually, get something to drink or a snack and kind of hang out and just enjoy it.
But how long would you say it would take to go through the whole garden?
So it kind of depends on what pace you're going through. I mean, there's definitely people who walk through pretty quickly, but typically we say about an hour. People definitely stay much longer than that and people leave sooner than that, but I would say about an hour is what I would plan for. There is benches along the entire path as you go down. And then some more even just in beautiful areas at the bottom if you just want to, take a moment. So if you're stopping and really trying to find, some serenity and peace down there, most likely a little bit more than an hour, but it kind of just depends on your personal experience through.
What's the admission?
Yeah, it's $12. For seniors, it's $10.
Mariah, how crowded is the park in this time of pandemic? Can you easily socially distance while walking through?
So our pathways are small, so I would say that's probably the biggest challenge. We do regulate the amount of people inside the garden at all times. So if we reach a capacity that we have decided is unsafe, which I think we only allow 25% of what we're allowed in, just for us to try and keep it extra safe for you guys. So if any point we hit that number, we do stop letting people in and then wait till people leave before letting more people enter. I think in general, people have been really respectful about it. Of course, there's always going to be times where someone might not be kind of following what's happening. We try to, if we catch it, enforce it. But for the most part, we've been really busy and people have been really great about it, really respectful, really kind. And I think because people do move through the garden a little slower, people aren't really looking to be next to each other. They're more looking for their personal time and experience in there. But for the most part, for the fact that we've been really busy, which is great, we haven't had any issues.
Okay. Thank you.
It looks like someone just, if you don't mind, someone just posted a question. Do you mind if I answer it?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. So we had someone ask, are the gardeners specially trained in Japanese plants and landscaping? Do you want me to answer that, Audrey Bob, or would you like me to? I can do either.
I think you can go.
Okay. So we do have a team of gardeners. There's about 6, and then the rest are volunteers. The 6 are obviously very, very well versed, and they'll train all the volunteers that enter on smaller tasks. And then depending on the plant, sometimes we do bring in individual specialists who do take care of those specific plants. We do have a bonsai club that takes care of the bonsai, but things like that. So as a whole, our gardeners are able to do it all themselves, but on a rare occasion that it's, more of a technique that they're not specialized in, we'll bring someone in.
I wanted to say, I think if you were really concerned about not being able to get back up from the bottom, there are gates that I think with prior arrangements, right, we could probably unlock it and somebody could meet you, right?
We have a van. So I guess worst case scenario, if you're like, it's just not happening, call the office. We'll come get you. We'll drive you back up.
Because we definitely did that with a group of seniors from a Buddhist temple, where some of the older people, they were very enthusiastic and they made it to the bottom, but they weren't feeling, all that energized about going back up. So we just phoned and then they sent the little van down to the bottom and they got a 2-minute ride back to the top, and it can be done. So don't let that get in the way of your visit.
And if you need something, I know things can be kind of difficult with COVID regulations right now, but just call. We always pick up the office phone. So if you have questions or seeing if there's a way to get about that you feel like without an accommodation you might not, just give us a call. We'll do the best we can to make sure that you can come in and enjoy it.
And Mariah, we saw images of those wonderful drumming demonstrations in the big. Are any of the things like that happening now?
Not currently. We really aren't able to do much in person right now, other than just have the garden itself open. We're doing the best we can to make everything virtual though. So if there's something planned, it'll most likely still be taking place just virtually. As soon as we are able to have people back in here, trust, we would be thrilled to have it, because it's definitely better to interact with all of you than just sometimes talk to yourself virtually. But to my knowledge, everything that's planned is still taking place. It'll just most likely be virtual.
Okay.
Yeah. So like weddings, I guess, for example, we aren't able to hold large weddings. But for smaller events, like, someone wants to do a mini Moni or like a wedding photo shoot, we can do things like that as long as we are able to stay in regulation with all the COVID restrictions.
I was happy to see that you have the taiko drums. So I'll wait until after the virus and schedule and see when they're coming back. I would love to see them.
Yeah, and we're working really hard to get our YouTube channel up. So hopefully that we can just start, recording things with some of the people we've worked with prior and just having it accessible now on a YouTube channel so that you don't have to wait. So that way, as soon as we can open doors again in that way, that you can experience this in person.
Okay, are there any other questions from members?
Arigato gozaimasu. Thank you.
Yes.
Are there is there any need for additional docents, or you guys have a pretty full complement considering there are no docent tours right now?
Yeah, so currently, yeah, unfortunately, we're not taking on any new docents at the moment. So if you go onto your website and you follow, till you get to the docent area, it says that it's currently not something we're going for at the moment. But if you are interested, you can always email me. I will save your email, and when we're able to start having tours and training docents again, I can reach back out to you. That would be great. Yeah, just currently at the moment, we just aren't able to, but we are hoping to soon. So if you're interested, you can always email me. I'll save it, and then when that is available again, we'll reach back out.
Actually, Mariah, we're so excited that you guys are even open and there's someone answering the phone. And, we're doing this whole museum series, and we've been talking to we're trying to reach out to so many other museums in Balboa Park, and there's nobody there. The lights are off. It's really bad.
Yeah. I think we just were super fortunate in that because we're an outdoor facility that we were able to kind of open up quickly, and I kind of feel like it's like a little sanctuary when you walk in. It's
really
just, it's just beautiful when you come in, and it's just like it's so contrasting from all the chaos happening right now and confusion. So it's like you just step in and it's kind of like exactly what you'd expect. Nothing's really changed. It's just beautiful and calm, and we are on a lot of acreage, so you just spend some time in here, and it's honestly so relaxing. Makes you feel good. So if you guys are able to come, we would love to have you guys. If you're not, we totally understand. We're working hard to put up some more stuff virtually for you.
Wonderful. Well,
but really, if you can go, please go and breathe it and smell it and be in that environment. I think it will do wonders for your mental health, your physical health. Just you'll feel better.
And Bob and Audrey, how long have you been docents there?
Probably
it's about 2 years now.
Wonderful. Huh.
That's a lot. I've been there.
And aren't they the cutest little duo? I love it.
So knowledgeable.
Really, really great. The videos were wonderful. Congratulations for that.
I think probably good editing had something to do with that.
Well, they're really wonderful. Very informative. So I want to thank you on behalf of the Retirement Association. Thank you so very much for having put those videos together and for having shared them and your expertise and knowledge with us today.
Suzanne, before you leave, I have one suggestion, and we're opening a new craft center at UCSD. Maybe there's some classes you could collaborate with them. I know in the past, years ago, when we had a craft center for many years, and I took pottery and a bonsai class there years ago, but they closed it maybe 10 years ago, but they're reopening it, whenever the pandemic, we get through this current time. So maybe there'd be opportunities to collaborate with the craft center on some classes.
That's a great suggestion. I'll be sure to send to Mariah with my thanks the email to Annika Nelson, the director of the new center. So with our thanks now to Audrey and Bob, our docents, and to Mariah, the outreach coordinator. And then again, my thanks to Shirley Higgins, who really went above and beyond making all the contacts to make this happen. Really, really appreciate it. This was totally enjoyable. A moment of zen in the middle of the day. Thank you.
Hope to see you there.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.